Welcome. You're listening to Doopy Deep with Dr. Nikki. This is the place where witty, irreverent, opinionated perspective meets serious, fact-based discussion. Featuring our host, Dr. Nikki Coleman, and her co-host, Tomas Bell. You can also join in the discussion during our live tapings by following us on Spreaker.com. Now, the doctor is in. It's time to get Doopy Deep.
Hello, and welcome back to, I feel like my accent came out really strong just now, that that felt real twangy. Welcome back to Doopy Deep with Dr. Nikki and my always tardy, ever thirsty, illustrious co-host, Tomas Bell.
Hello, Dr.
I know
Nikki.
how disrespectful that sounds in my ear. I do. I apologize to all the listeners. Oh my God. I feel like you must have put your lips in the cup right up next to the mic that time. That was such a sip.
Perched on the mic. It's like was an 80s rapper. You know what I mean? I was so up in the mic right there.
So much spittle.
Let me just tell you. Oh, no. Spit guard, boo. Spit guard. Never do that.
You fancy, huh?
I be fancy with my mic. Yeah. No, it's because this is a $600 condenser mic. So I do not play games on the mic the way an 80s rapper does.
So one of our listeners and friends and a friend of mine, he was giving me some feedback, and he one of the issues we were talking about was sound. So again, for all the listeners, I'm here in Houston, Texas. Tomas is in New York City, so we do this remotely. And he was like, no, you could just definitely tell he's invested some money in his sound equipment. That's different than maybe what you've invested. He was like, your mic is fine. It's perfectly fine. It's just, he's
invested. Don't be shady unless you pay him my mic bills. How about that, brother?
But wait a minute. Now that I know it's $600, we will continue to stay sound discordant.
You can't compare the two because I'm sitting in my production studio. So if I didn't have a $600 mic and I did audio and stuff for a living like I do, then
You probably wouldn't be doing it for a living.
Oh, okay. The key was there for a living as opposed to just doing audio. I be doing audio. I taped them dogs fighting last night. I mean, that's not what happens here.
No. $600 for a mic. I need a moment with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I should say that's one of several in that price range because you need different ones for different things, for voice, for guitars, that kind of thing. Yeah. Doing music is expensive. That's why I'm not cheap in my rates.
I know. Nor should you be. Can we also just take a moment to recognize the urban woman that is in me thought I need him to stop talking about prices on this podcast before people try to jack him for his stuff. I need you. I got really worried for you.
But
for 30 seconds.
That's also why you don't see real personal business of mine, quote, up in these streets. Cyber streets, real streets. I take different routes back home like I don't.
Detours.
Right. I go uptown to get downtown to go side town just for yo's wondering, oh, he lived downtown. Nope. No, I don't.
My goodness.
I live in town.
I live around. Is where I live. I live around. Right. My goodness. So welcome back, everyone. We always start kind of laughing and joking, even though we usually are talking about probably 7 out of 10 times we're talking about things that aren't particularly funny or light. But I enjoy talking with you. It's fun. It's a source of joy. So that
we have a kinship.
Always makes me happy. We have a kinship.
We have a podcast kinship.
And there it is. But it always makes me feel like awkward to transition to actually talk about the topic because we go from like to depths of darkness.
Oh my goodness.
And then
Last
like,
week,
no
doing it to suicide.
transition.
That was like crazy transition.
There's no
Kiki,
easy transition.
now let's talk about this.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
It's never easy. But I also think if I'm going to like use a holistic kind of diunital thinking about things, we can do both and, right? And we can say lots of life right now is not light or funny or particularly breezy. But that is life. It's always the balance of both good and bad and light and dark and heaviness and lightness. So we can do both here. We're complicated people with complicated feelings about things. So today's topic is hashtag ArtVArtist, so in planning for the show, I was telling Tomas what I wanted to talk about. And I was like, I want to talk about this thing. Da, da, da. He was like, oh, hashtag ArtVArtist. And I was like, and this is why you're on the production side of things, because I didn't even know that was a hashtag that was kind of circling it out there. So,
but can I just address that real quick? There's a reason why I said ArtVArtist as opposed to any of the other ones that we could have used. The way we're using it today is not exactly the way it's intended. So I want our listeners to be very clear with that. ArtVArtist is a hashtag that's used online, places like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Pinterest is a big one.
Pinterest?
Yep. And
I'd be forgetting about Pinterest.
I know a lot of people do. Where an artist will take their photo, a selfie, if you will, and take their artwork and put it around the selfie or in the same picture as the selfie. And so you see the artist in a selfie and the artwork as well. And this could be art, it could be crafts, it could be many different things. But that's the ArtVArtist. What we're doing today is taking a slightly different look at that. And I'll let you speak more to that. But that was my thinking behind it, because it's just one side of the same coin, right? Because you are talking about people taking selfies and, putting their art up there. And we're looking at it from a slightly different perspective, but it's the same basic thing.
Yes. So what we want to actually talk about is, or what I'm interested in exploring more, because this is one of those podcasts in which I have way more questions than answers. Like, this is not I don't have a lot of clarity about this. And I think it's been my continued lack of clarity about it that made me want to have the podcast conversation around it. So I'm interested to hear what other folks have to say in response to this. So, I think hashtag Me Too movement has brought a lot of our awareness to victimization of victimization and violence against women, oftentimes sexual violence against women. And lots of male celebrities, ranging from comedians to actors to singers to rappers to you pick producers, talent scouts, like you pick up a part of the artistic community. And we could probably come up with a male celebrity or well-known person that represents a particular category. And many of these folks have been charged with acts of sexual violence against women. And what often happens is conversations around boycotting their work. Some of them have actually lost contracts for work that was either in progress, or like I'll think in the case of Nate Parker, the studio kind of backed off some of the promotion of his movie after all of the history around his date rape incident came out surrounding the promotion of the film. So there's been oftentimes some sort of financial consequence. Not all the time, but oftentimes. And so that's always caused me to have the question of, is that the most, is that a realistic expectation or consequence? And is it the most effective? And so I kind of wanted to wrestle with that question a little bit, because I don't have an answer around like what I think, like not that I would, let me be clear, not that I'm trying to posit an answer for everybody. I wouldn't ever presume to do that. But even for me, I don't know where I stand on this particular, I don't have a stance on this particular issue. So I wanted to talk about it and bring it up. So that is what we will spend most of our time talking about today. However, before we can really get into this, I told Tomas that I really couldn't not talk about the zero tolerance policy on immigration and the familial separation that's kind of blown way out of proportion and control happening at the border, at our southern border. It's timely that that's happening. I've been deeply personally affected by it. Just really vacillating between outrage, rage, and deep sadness about what's happening with lots of Central American and Mexican folks that are trying to seek asylum here in the U.S. And being stopped at our southern border and being detained. Let me be clear, being detained at our southern border and having families separated, and then even oftentimes having sibling groups separated because they are detaining folks by age group. And that has taken up a lot of the news cycle and a lot of our collective kind of country conversation. And I just really wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that the pain that I think a lot of people are feeling, to acknowledge the trauma that's happening to the children and also to the parents. I hear a lot of people talking about the trauma the kids are undergoing, the long-term consequences of that, and I'm not discounting that at all. It is a biological imperative and a psychological need for children to be with their caregivers. It has so many physiological and psychological long-term consequences on children. So it's not just what's happening in the acute, not in the here and now that's tragic and problematic, but the long-term consequences are also deeply concerning. And I also want to, as a mother, I have to talk about what the parents' experience might be. I cannot imagine having my child taken from me without any sense of control over them, out of no fault of my own, and almost to the extent of, in my pursuit of trying to take care of my child in the best way possible, trying to find a way to keep them safe and do the job as a parent, and then having them taken away from me in that process is distressing for me to even think about. So my heart and all of my positive intentions and energy, even in this podcast and in all that I do recently, in loving my daughter and how I parent her, how I show up in the world as a compassionate human being, is directed towards those families at this time. I also want to inform anybody that's listening live, if you are also being affected by this and wondering what you can do, how you can engage. I know that one of the things that helps oftentimes in situations in which you feel emotionally overwhelmed is having a sense of agency and having a sense of empowerment. So this being able to do something in the face of tragedy or adversity has healing power. And so I want to direct you, if you still are unaware, unclear what you could do to get more information, I would direct you to this ongoing list that's being hosted at slate.com. And the title of the article is, Here's How You Can Help Fight Family Separation at the Border.